All right.
And we're live.
And we're entering the Nexus.
Yes, 100% entering the Nexus. First episode of the podcast.
All right. So I'm Lolliet the Third,
And I
and I'm
am.
here.
Go for
Okay.
it.
I'm here with Less Gently.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and start with our introductions. We're on your channel, so why don't you go ahead and introduce your background in like MOBAs and card games?
Alright, well, my name's Les Gently. I stream on Twitch and I make YouTube videos. I've played League of Legends, the MOBA, for like 8 years, since early season 2. I've played lots of card games. I used to play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Played a lot of Hearthstone. And I got in early on the first day preview patch for Legends of Runeterra, and that's been my main focus ever since. What about you?
All right. So I'm mostly a card boy. I know nothing about Legends at all. So my background's generally in Pokemon and other no-name card games like Chronicle and Lightseekers.
Sounds good.
For the most part, I've been like top like 5% in all the games I play. I'm like the dude who grinds for Legend and never really does anything more than that. So with that, I think we're ready to get into this game. So I'm super excited. You get to enter a day early if you are pre-registered, right? So that's the 23rd.
Yes,
Oh,
23rd. If you pre-registered, you get in a day early.
and what's today? The 17th. You can still pre-register until the 19th.
Yep, 6 days until the big day where I'm gonna lose my life.
It's all right. I never had one to begin with. So teach us about deck building. Like, how does the deck work, and what are the rules and restrictions for this game?
Okay, so the deck is made up of 40 cards, and the main focus of most decks are champion cards, which you can have up to six. So you can have six different champions or two different champions with three copies, and three copies is the maximum limit for any card in a singular deck. So you can have three copies max of six champions, and max of 40, or have to have 40 cards.
So that means you could run six different one of champions,
Yes,
or you could run two, three of champions, or any mix of that.
yes, exactly.
Huh? Awesome. And is there any restriction on spells and units? Could you run an all spell deck?
Yes, you can.
Right. Would it be good?
Uh, some of them are.
Really?
Yeah, not all spell, but you'd run Ezreal and Lux, and then the rest spells, and that actually works out. Or Lux and Heimerdinger,
That's
all
really
spells.
cute.
Yes.
All right. So now I suppose we should talk about how the game actually plays a little bit. So, do you want to go over how turns work or how spell mana works first?
I think we should go over the turns and then the spell mana. So for the turns, there are rounds and there are actions. So a round is like a typical turn in a card game, where each player draws a card and each player gains +1 to their maximum mana pool. And the actions are the back and forth within the turn to enable the gameplay. So if I play a card, if I play a unit, it would be then your action to play a unit or a spell, and then it would go back to me, and back and back and back. And the only exception is burst speed spells, and I think we'll get into those when we talk about spell speeds later. Um, and there is a action token for
An attack
each,
token.
an attack token, yes, for each turn round, and one player has it during each round. And so it will go back and forth during each round, and whoever has the attack token gets to initiate the battle phase, per se, of the round. And during the battle phase of the round, it will you set up your attackers. It will then be the defender's turn to set up blockers and either play a spell or pass. And if you pass, if the attacker decides to play a fast or burst spell, which are the only spells to be able to be played during the attack phase, um, if he plays a spell, it then goes back to you to react, and if you play a spell, it goes back, and vice versa, until one person does not react at all. And as soon as one person does not have a reaction, the battle will commence, and then the attack phase will be over.
Yeah. So that's their version of like a stack or a chain or whatever
Yes.
card game you come from.
Yeah, and you
And
can
so
chain
basically,
spells specifically.
all right. And so when you play a spell, your opponent gets an option to play a spell before you get to play a second spell, unless it's burst.
Exactly.
All right. So the cool thing about this, I was thinking about Gwent, if anybody ever played Gwent. And in Gwent, old school Gwent, like beta Gwent, you
Beta Gwen.
alternated playing one card. So it would be like I play a card, and then you play a card, and then I play a card. And then when both players pass, it ends the round. So each turn is kind of like a Gwent round where you guys both alternate back and forth. And there is no attacking in Gwent, but in this game, one person is allowed to attack during each of those entire rounds that we might call a turn.
Exactly. And then spell mana is a stored subsection of your normal mana that can only be used for spells, and the way you get spell mana is from having access mana from your previous turn, up to a maximum of 3. So if you on turn 3, if you only use 2 mana and you have 1 mana left over, on turn 4 you will have 4 normal mana and 1 spell mana. And if you ever cast a spell, it will always use your spell mana first.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. You don't get to choose which mana you use. You're forced to use your spell mana first when you cast a spell.
Every single time, no matter what.
All right. So you can't purposely save it for another round in the future if you want to play a spell this turn.
Exactly.
Although you could still leave some mana open at the end of your turn, which would there flow into your spell mana slot.
Yes. So if you're going to have
All right.
leftover mana anyways, and you were thinking about playing a spell, say if you have 3 spell mana and 3 normal mana left, you might as well play the 3 mana spell, or you're just going to lose 3 mana worth of spells, because you can't have more than 3 spell mana. And spell
Right.
mana will carry on throughout the turns. So,
And I think that's a really important like balancing. Obviously that's for future discussion, but the fact that you have exactly three changes the value of more expensive spells, right? Because you're allowed to play them earlier in the game if you choose to forego playing some mana earlier.
exactly. And there is a singular spell that is 12 mana to play. So, that makes you have to have spell mana to even play it.
Right, because your max mana is 10. So,
Exactly.
and max mana, we get one every time the entirety of a turn or a round is over. And they're basically like gems from Hearthstone, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Except
And
both of you get it at the same time.
yes, because you guys are both playing a turn at the same time. It's just one has an attacking role and the other has a defending role, and the next turn the opposite.
Yep.
Very
Perfect.
unique gameplay. I think it's going to open up a lot of different situations, even for experienced card game players, which is something that will keep people coming back.
Yeah. So I think that covers the gist of all the rounds and actions. It's a little difficult to verbally explain without watching gameplay, but that should definitely help in case you have no clue what's happening in Legends of Runeterra at all, and then this is your first card game. So it's better to know something than nothing.
Yeah, and I actually think if this was your first card game, it'd be easier to understand. But if you played other card games, it can be a little
I
weird because
100% agree because
taking
you get into gameplay patterns from other games, and you're like, oh well, that does not work the same way.
Yeah, there's a couple of times that we have been talking, like just for fun on the side, and we would argue about how something would happen that has never come up before,
Yeah,
and we're like, no, it's obviously this way. He's like, no, it's obviously this way, and it turns out we just don't know because you have to come across it in the game to really find out. So let's move into keywords. All right, so I get a list of all the keywords and some that you might not even think are keywords because they
yep.
kind of aren't.
And I have them
Uh,
all up on the screen in the center for you guys all to see.
Perfect. So let's start with allegiance. Tell me what allegiance is.
Allegiance is a deck checking top card of your deck checking keyword. So when you play a card with an allegiance, it will check the top card of your deck, and if the top card on your deck is the same region as the allegiance card, the allegiance spell activation will go through.
Right. So I have played a card game where this was a mechanic before, and I think it was Eternal. But if anyone could correct me, I would love to come back to the chat later on and and see that somebody knew exactly what it was. But yeah, flips up the card. If the card's of the same color or same region, then you get the effect on the card. Pretty standard. Barrier. What's barrier in this game?
Barrier is a free invincibility to damage for a single hit for that turn. So it is the equivalent of a divine shield from Hearthstone for that one turn or round.
Yes.
So not as
So
strong as divine shield.
no, because of course, if you don't end up using that shield that turn, it was useless.
Yes, exactly. So
So
I think it's one of the weaker keywords in
and
my opinion.
Gwent had a similar thing. It was called Quen, and that was considered too powerful in that game. But once again, it stayed for more than one round. I think as soon as you make it a one round effect, it loses a lot of its effectiveness. But still, really good if you can play it like in combat phase, right?
Yeah, and another thing is if you play it while defending or attacking, the value of the barrier changes greatly. If you play it while attacking, it's a free swing basically because your thing won't die unless it gets poked, But on defending, it's not nearly as great in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the scenario, but I think generally speaking that you get a lot more effectiveness on the attack phase. So capture. So tell me about capture and how many cards have capture?
One card has
Okay.
capture, and the card is called Detain, which I will bring up on screen for you all.
And so what does capture do?
Capture, it's kind of difficult to explain. Detain, if I can spell. This is detain, and you steal ish an enemy unit. You select one of your units to capture the enemy unit, which you get to decide. And so the enemy unit is stolen from your unit, and when your unit that captured that unit dies, they get their unit back.
So yeah, if you've ever played Magic, you're basically exiling it, and your creature that you chose to be the detainee essentially is like the enchantment that keeps it out of play, and then when your creature gets destroyed, it comes back. So
Yep,
your opponent will get the creature back, unless of course you silence your creature that
that is
exiled.
exactly what I was going to bring up. If you purify or silence your uh, detainee, uh, they will never get their card back. So, some really fun interactions with the card Detain, and Detain
Mm.
is one of the strongest removal tools in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a cheeky play, and I love cheeky plays. Challenger. This is one of my favorite mechanics because I've never played in a card game that had this mechanic. So tell me about Challenger.
Challenger is a force block uh, kind of card. So a card with Challenger, when they go to attack, you get to pick which blocker blocks it. Or you don't have to pick at all, and they can still block it, but they get to choose. It acts as a normal minion. But Challenger essentially just says, hey, I'm going to make you block me with my Challenger card. So very,
So
very effective for getting rid
yeah,
of annoying
it's kind of
backlines
crazy.
or elusives.
So for people who played Magic, it's like forcing something to fight you. Only it's during your attack phase. Um, so you deal your damage to it; it deals its damage to you because it's literally during the attack
Yeah.
phase. But there are the fight mechanics in Magic. All right, double attack. So this one we learned something about while we were going over the terminology, and we got this one nailed down. Tell me about double attack.
So double attack is well, obviously it attacks twice, and during the first attack, it has quick attack, so it will strike before it gets struck back. So it has quick attack uh, and then another attack.
Right, and of course we didn't go over quick attack because we're going alphabetically. But
Yeah,
quick attack is first strike, but only while you're in the attack, like only while you're attacking.
yeah. So if you have something with quick attack with 3 attack, and they decide to block with a 3 HP um, blocker, you will kill the 3 HP blocker without taking any damage because you have hit it
Exactly.
first and it has died.
And then of course in the double strike, you're going to do the first strike, and then you're going to deal your damage again, but they hit you back. So if you're a 4/4 attacking into an 8/8, you'll be able to hit him for 4, and then hit him for 4 more on the second one. You guys both die.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
And there's only
Drain.
2 cards in the game with double
Oh
attack.
yes, only 2 cards. Why don't you just
Yeah.
tell us the 2 cards?
So the 2 cards with double attack are Lucian and Senna, and those are the only 2 in the game with double attack. And there are no spells. There's nothing to give any of your other minions double attack. So those are
For
the
now.
for now. Yeah, for
Yes.
now.
I look forward to more double attack because I think it's a fun mechanic. All right. Drain. What does Drain
Drain
do?
is the spell lifesteal equivalent, and we'll get to lifesteal. Lifesteal's kind of self-explanatory. When you deal damage with a card with Drain, it will deal the damage and then heal your Nexus for the amount of damage done.
Right. And are there drain spells that deal damage to the opponent?
Directly to the opponent, like their
Yes.
Nexus.
Yep.
Off the top of my head, I think there's one.
Okay.
I think
And there's drain spells that deal damage to their creatures,
yes.
and there's drain spells that deal damage to yourself, like your own creatures.
Yes.
So you can basically target almost anything in the game, depending on which drain spell you have. All right. Elusive. Now, this is kind of cute. And we had talked about Elusive, and it turns out that you were right about Elusive. I thought it was like Shadow for Magic, but it's not. It's much more like Flying.
Yeah. So Elusive is a unit that can only be blocked by another elusive unit, unless it gets challenged out or anything along those lines. But if you set up your elusive to attack, they cannot block it, no matter what, unless they have an elusive minion as well.
But of course, the difference here between Shadow and Elusive is that you can still block with your elusive creature.
Yes, you can block whoever you want with your elusive creature, but they cannot block your elusive creature with whoever they want. They can only block it against it with another elusive creature.
And that's for better or for worse, because that means challengers can take out your elusive creature.
Yes, and that is the main main way that they die.
Yeah. All right. Enlightened, actually, is where we're at.
Enlightened is a effect on cards, and it happens as soon as you hit the maximum normal amount of mana in the game, which is 10. So as soon as
Yep.
you reach round 10, the cards with Enlightened will activate, no matter where they are. Except for Karma. You have to play Karma to level her up.
Right.
That is the
And
only
if
exception.
you've played Magic, it's very similar to the City's Blessing, which is when you have 10 or more permanents. But the reason this is better is because you can't lose your maximum mana. So you're always going to have Enlightened for the remainder of the game once you trigger it. And Ephemeral. All right, this is one of my favorite words, one of my favorite mechanics. Tell me about Shark Chariots.
I don't want to tell you about Shark Chariots. Ephemeral is when usually the cards are stronger base statted, usually. And at the end of the round, no matter which side it's on, even if it's defending or attacking, if it is still alive, it will die. No matter what. And there are ways to transfer ephemeral from cards to different cards or enemy cards, and it is a very powerful tool. And there's a lot of synergistic cards with ephemeral. If you ever played in the preview patch before and you played ephemeral and Nivea, don't be here.
I disagree. I think you're just a
Dude,
smart player if you played that deck.
no. Negative, negative. That's a negative Ghost Rider.
All right. Fearsome.
Fearsome is where the unit with Fearsome cannot be blocked by a creature with 2 or less power, which is attack. Or you can word it 3 or more.
Right. So
It can
it
only be
can
blocked with something with 3 or more
with 3
power.
or more. Yeah. So
Yes.
it's a really weird wording, and I believe at some point it was actually worded both ways. I don't know if they've updated and fixed
I'm
that.
reading on this page we're looking at. It says can only be blocked by enemies with 3 or more attack. But
3 or more.
in game
Okay.
there are several cards which say 2 or less power.
2 or less cannot block it. Yes.
Yes.
So it's the same thing either way, I guess. So that's good. Fleeting. So tell me about fleeing cards and how kind of weird they are.
Fleeting cards will disappear from your hand if you do not play them that round. Uh, there are fleeting minions and there are fleeting spells. Heimerdinger, the card Heimerdinger, when he creates his little turrets, they are all fleeting. So if you do not play them that turn, they are gone.
And is all the fleeting cards cards that were created, or are there any cards that you'll draw from your deck that will have fleeting?
All of them are created.
Okay, so that is helpful because you don't want to draw the top card of your deck and
Yeah.
then be like, I have to play it right now or it's gone. All right, so Frostbite. All right, I know you're a big fan of Frostbite.
I don't know about that one.
You're not? Oh,
No, it's
when
annoying.
you had me with the double Frostbite combo,
Oh
like
yeah, I told you about
okay,
that. See, that's interesting combos. But am I a fan of Frostbite? I do not think that all of them should be burst. That is a little obnoxious. But Frostbite sets a unit's power to 0 until otherwise changed. End of the round, it will revert back, or if you buff it, it will still be frostbited, but it will not have 0 power anymore. So it
okay. So
sets it to 0, which then can be changed again.
it can be responded to and then buffed.
Yes.
So that's good. And you can still block if you get frostbited.
Yes, unless they have Ash, in which you cannot.
Right. And you can still attack with your 0 cost because some minions can deal damage just when they attack.
Yes.
So
But
frostbite, all
again,
it does is
with
set you to
Ash,
0 attack.
you can't.
Right. All right. Last breath. So
Last
that's death.
breath, yeah, it is Death Rattle from Hearthstone. When this card dies, it effect happens. So,
Yeah.
uh, you know, the good old what's the card? Loot Hoarder from Hearthstone, if you're familiar
Yes.
with that.
That is a card in this game.
Yeah, that is literally a card in this game.
Literally the same text. So lifesteal. All right, we finally got here. Tell me about lifesteal.
Lifesteal is never on spells. Drain is the lifesteal equivalent for spells. But for units, lifesteal is whatever damage you do will be healed to your Nexus. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You steal the life and give it to your Nexus. So it's
Which is
self-healing.
lifelink for Magic, right? So my question is, do you see any current iterations of design that make it so that they had to have these as two separate keywords?
I think lifesteal for spells just sounded a little different, and draining thematically for the Shadow Isles, because I'm pretty sure only Shadow Isles spells have drain. For
Mm-hmm.
lore-wise, from League of Legends, it makes sense for it to be draining because of the Shadow Isles lore, but that's about it.
Okay, because yeah, I couldn't really think of any reason, but I'm sure they have plans in future like releases that maybe it would be broken for some reason because maybe each time you play a lifesteal creature or each time you play a drain, you get an effect, and they don't want it to stack too much.
Yeah, there's no cards like that at the moment, but if there was ever, 2020 vision foresight, then they have it.
Yeah, yeah, you just don't want to limit design space, right? So going in name with the show, right? What is Nexus Strike?
Yeah, Nexus Strike happens when you deal damage to the Nexus. There's only a few cards with it, but the effects are pretty strong for the most part for the cards themselves.
Right. So basically, it's just
Yep.
direct damage to the player.
If you hit the face, you get something.
All right. So obliterate.
Obliterate is disgusting. Uh,
I think it's really cool.
yeah, it just evaporates whatever is obliterated from the game. Their last breaths do not work. It is the
Right.
equivalent of being banished in Yu-Gi-Oh. If a card is
Exactly.
so it is gone forever, uh, and its effects will not happen. And there's only
Yep.
one
So they're
card.
exiled.
There's
There's
only
no
one card with
depth around the
obliterate,
figure.
and I'm sure most people know it. It is the She Who Wins, the She Who
She
Wanders.
who wins. That is
Yeah,
not. That is not her. Yeah. She
the
who
She Who
wanders.
Wins, and that is the only card with obliterate at the moment.
And they did nerf her, right? So
Not enough, but yes.
I mean,
Arguably, yeah. They needed to nerf her at least, but
One thing that I can say is that they haven't updated that she no longer has regeneration
Yeah.
on Obliterate. So maybe they're going to unnerf her slightly and give her
Yeah, they
regeneration.
also didn't update their avalanche on here. I noticed that.
So Overwhelm. All right, Overwhelm's pretty easy. That's trample, right?
Exactly. Exact same thing as trample. And overwhelm. I was hearing rumors that it will go over barrier. It will just go
Oh yeah,
straight
that
through the
makes
barrier.
perfect.
Yeah.
Wait, the entirety of the
The
barrier?
entirety of the barrier. It
So
like
you would deal direct
you
damage.
will not
Oh
take
my.
damage because you have barrier, but it will still go through. From
Oh
I
my.
never
That,
experienced that, but that is what I heard on the internet. So do not take that for 100% fact. I would imagine that's not the way it works, but if it does
yeah,
work that way, that is
I need to
something
find
else.
out because that's just
Yeah,
bananas.
yeah. I
All
was
right,
like,
and we talked about
oof.
quick attack already. That's first strike only on offense though.
Yes, only
Uh,
on offense. If you have quick attack and you're on defense, uh, you will not strike first. It is
right, so
only on offense.
don't make that mistake. That's going to be made so many times. All right, recall. What's recall?
Recall is bouncing, so you can either recall your own units back to your hand or recall enemy units back to their hands. It is the uh, basically the card Sap from Hearthstone or Vanish, if that's still
Yep.
a card. I think that got I think that got
Or like
removed.
a bounce effect
Yeah,
from
a
Magic.
bounce. Yeah.
So regeneration. Now regeneration is different than in some of the other games. So tell me about how regeneration works in this game.
So at the end of the round, the card with regeneration will heal to full every single time.
Every time. So it doesn't matter if it takes one damage
Yep.
or
If it takes
all but
if
one.
it takes
Yep.
one or all but one, it will go back to full health at the start of the next round.
And that can be a very powerful effect from a defensive standpoint.
Very much so. Braum survives just because of that. So
And then he can give us some poro porridge.
yes, delicious poros.
Strike. What is strike?
Strike happens when you just attack something. If you, it's an easier way of Nexus strike. You can strike the Nexus or you can strike an enemy. It doesn't
So even
matter
if they
what you
block you, you
strike.
still get the effect.
Yeah, as long as you struck the enemy. Uh,
All right.
yeah.
And that still works even on barrier.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Strongest, not exactly a keyword, but it's what it
Yeah.
sounds like, right?
It's exactly what
So
it sounds like. Whatever the card that says strongest will have a effect applied with it. Like target the strongest enemy, and strongest is the one with the highest power. So.
yep. All right. And then you can obviously stun a unit,
Yep.
right? Not
Stun
not
makes
too
it
confused.
unable to attack, unable to defend. Its effects still happen if something happens on while it's on your back line, but it just
And that's
can't attack
only
or can't defend.
until the end of that round.
Yes,
So when you switch attack and defense tokens, it will no longer be stunned.
yes, correct.
Because that could be a little bit confusing because I know a lot of people are used to taking their turn, then their opponent's turn, but of course in this game you take both turns at once. All right.
Yeah, very
Support.
powerful. Support is interesting. So when you attack and a card has support on it, like for example the card War Chefs, its support is the ally. My supported ally will get +1/+1. And so when you attack with War Chefs and another ally, the ally on the right side of War Chefs will get the supported buff.
Yeah, this is not an intuitive
Yeah, it was not very
keyword.
intuitive, and you have to really make sure of your positioning in some of your games, especially with Shen, because you can you can almost throw a game by mispositioning your attacking units.
And I'm a big fan of positioning. In Gwent, one of the big things was they had rows and positioning mattered, right? So
Yes,
no matter what the support is, it's always going to affect the target to the right. Is that correct?
every single time to the right.
Okay.
So if you only have two units and you accidentally place War Chef on the right and and your other units on the left, the War Chefs will just be a normal minion.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't want that to happen. All right. Tough. Tell me about tough.
Tough is you literally just take one less damage from every source of damage. So if
So even if you take 3 sources of damage in one turn, all for one, it would stop all of them.
yes, you will take 0 damage. Whatever damage you
Excellent.
would take, subtract 1.
And for those that played Mythgard, it's basically the equivalent of armor. Well, armor one, right? And there is no tough two, right? You can't make
Nope,
it so you're double tough
cannot.
because I would have the toughest Poro. He would be like, he
There
doesn't take 5
is a
damage every
Poro
time.
with tough. Isn't it the Plucky Poro or something?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
one of them. That was almost my selection for my card of the week.
Oh, yikes.
Lucky Poro. All
Yikes.
right, tell me about traps. Have you, do you have?
There's only one kind of trap currently. There are multiple cards that put in traps, but only one trap, and that is Teemo's Mushrooms. A trap is inserting a counter on an enemy card if you're the one playing it. So you put a counter on a card, a random card in the enemy deck, and whenever that card is drawn, the effect of the trap will happen. So for Teemo's Mushrooms, when you put mushrooms into the enemy deck, it will randomly select a card and put a mushroom on it. And you can have up to a billion mushrooms if you're if
This
you're good
is
enough. And then
this is a really weird thing.
whenever you RNG draw a card and it has 7 traps on it, you will take 7 damage. It will attach to random cards. It doesn't go in order. They can stack infinitely on one card if you're, they can
Right, they could just all go.
yeah. So if you have 20 cards in your deck and 100 mushrooms, you are not guaranteed to draw 5. 5 damage of traps every turn. You could draw all 100 if you are just omega unlucky, but
And this is crazy because like Hearthstone has a similar mechanic, right? Where you'll shuffle 0 cost cards into your opponent's deck or whatever, and then they draw that card and it deals the damage, and then they draw an additional card, right? This actually like puts your effect on their cards, and you could put like 40 onto one card. You could have 40 damage on that one card when you draw it. Like
yes.
it's crazy, and it's super RNG. It's probably never going to be good, and we don't
That
want it to
it's
be good.
probably the highest RNG ish card in the game. Like consistent RNG. Of course, there's other cards that can just either give you shit or give you something super good, but for
Right.
consistent RNG, it is Teemo's Mushrooms.
So if that's what you're into, you're playing Teemo.
Yeah,
It's pseudo random. Interesting. What would be the part that makes it not random?
intentionally leveled down
Intentionally
somewhat.
leveled out.
We'd have
I
to.
hope that's true because like what
Yeah, I
the way
hope
I
that's
think it
true
should
because
work is it should distribute over all the cards once and then over all the cards again, right? You shouldn't have
yeah,
seven
it does
seven
not
one
work that way.
and zero
I
one
can tell
one.
you 100% it does not evenly distribute, but it may have a like a leveling factor of this card hasn't been touched in a while. Maybe we'll add one on that. It has a higher percentage chance to be added, but as long as we don't get a report, we can never know. So for now, it's random in my mind.
Yeah, I hope it has like some kind of like de-randomizer.
Yeah,
Exactly, not completely level. Yeah, so you could still get like that really skewed like 7 on 1 card. But once again, it depends on how many mushrooms you're putting in the deck, right? If you're putting 100 mushrooms in to a 20 card deck, like who knows? You could
yeah.
easily
On
have like
average, you're
7.
gonna draw 5, but sometimes you'll just draw 0, and sometimes you'll draw 20. Like you'll never know.
Have you ever got what's the most you got hit for by a mushroom in one draw?
In one draw, like 24.
24.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
I think I had like 500 in my deck or something. So
500. Oh
yeah,
my god. How
Ev-
did they get 5? God.
evolved Teemo. Every time he strikes your Nexus, it doubles the amount of mushrooms in your deck. So
Yep, that gets out of hand quick. All right, so where are we? We're at weakest, which is the exact opposite of strongest. It's the creature with the lowest attack.
exactly.
So if it targets the weakest, right, then targets one of the lowest attack. Now we're into spell speeds. All right, so first we have slow spells.
Yes. Slow spells are spells that cannot be cast in combat.
So
That
they
is
can be cast any other time.
yes. Any other time, just cannot be cast in combat.
They can be cast while you have the defensive token, while you have the attack token.
Exactly.
All right, and then we move into fast spells, which
It is the
um,
exact same as slow spells, except it can be used in combat.
All right. But of course, your opponent still gets a reaction to that fast
Yes,
spell.
as we went over earlier when we
So
went
it's
over.
not nearly as fast as you inherently would think,
Yeah,
because
yeah, not as fast as it says it is. It's
right,
faster than slow. We'll put it that way.
right. It's just comparatively. And then we have burst, right? Which, if I would be honest, like the intuitive nature, I would think fast spells and burst spells would have the opposite effects.
Well, I never played a game with spell speeds that were significant. There are spell speeds in Yu-Gi-Oh, but only at like the highest level would that actually matter. So it never made much of a difference most of the time. Um, so I think burst is like very quick in my mind. Like when I just hear the word burst, I think like
I view burst as
instantaneous.
like it goes really fast, really short. So like the way I would picture it is like you
Yeah, because
burst
yeah, it
and then the
happens
opponent
and
catches
the
up to you.
effect happens and it's gone, and there's no chaining involved for Yu-Gi-Oh terms.
But if
Um,
I'm fast, then I'm like the kid from The Incredibles. Like
fast
that's what
is
I'm saying.
relative.
That's very true. So, all right, and burst spells. So, burst spells, of course, make it so that your
Can
opponent does not get a
yes,
reaction, and they
yes,
can be played at any time from anywhere.
yep, can be cast on your turn, opponent's turn during combat, and the effect will instantly happen. There is no reactions. There's no chaining cards to it. It just happens instantly.
And then, of course, you can play another card after it. So
Exactly,
it's the
and
only
it
way to play back-to-back cards without your
yes,
opponent getting a chance.
it will not pass the turn even if you play a burst spell. It will happen automatically and instantly.
All right, and there's more detailed stuff to that, but I think we'll leave that for
Yeah,
now.
that's more advanced.
All right, we're to my favorite section now. All right, this is like we came up with a lot of names for the podcast, and I can tell you that you
Yeah.
hated all of them that I came up with. But
I,
I wanted something to do with Poros or with Teemo because they're adorable.
eh.
So we are bringing you your weekly Poro snacks. All right, and these are
Oh
snacks
gosh.
for Poros. These
I
are not
forgot. I
snacks made
forgot
of
we named
Poro.
it that.
so, so our first Poro snack is that you can see your opponent's champions before you start a match. That is, these are like tips
Yep.
and tricks, just in case
Yep.
that didn't come
Yeah,
across.
they're tips and tricks. They're Poro snacks.
So tell me how you can see your opponent's champions before the match.
Yeah. Well, during your mulligan, you can see what champions are in your opponent's deck by clicking on their deck. It will tell you how many cards they have left. It will tell you what champions are in their deck. No matter if they have 6 or 2 or just 1, it will tell you the champions that are currently in the opponent's deck.
All right, so let's get a little more detailed. So if you see that they have six champions, that means you know they have one of each.
It will not tell you how many champions, but it will show you an icon of their champions. So they could have
But,
2
but if there's
champions.
six, then they have to have one of each, right? That's just math.
Yeah. If they have 6
Right.
different ones, then you know exactly they have one of each. But if they
And
only
if they have
have,
two,
if it
then
only
you know that
shows
they have three of
Teemo and
each.
Zed, then they could have 1 of each, 2 of each, or 3 of each.
That's very true. Yeah, you wouldn't know whether they have less than three, but you know they don't have more
Yes.
than that. And of course, if they have like four different champions, then you get a little confused on like you don't know how many number for each one.
Yeah, but you can always check to see what champions the enemy deck is running before the game starts off.
And that can help you make better mulligans. So,
Exactly. I use it every game.
speaking of something else, you should use every game. The Oracle's Eye. Tell me about the Oracle's Eye and what it does.
So the Oracle's Eye is in between your Nexus and the enemy's Nexus. And so during the combat phase, the attack action, you can hover over a little blue eye that opens up, and it will show you the outcome of the battle currently. So you can put your blockers up, and you're like, oh, I don't know if this is going to block enough. And you hover over the Oracle's Eye, it will show you what enemies are going to die, what exactly happens, how much damage you take, how much damage they take, what survives. It will show you the complete outcome of the battle, and so you can organize your blockers accordingly.
Yeah, and I think that's really cute. I haven't really seen that in any of the card games I've played.
Yeah.
So,
Not very many people use it, so it's definitely a tool to be used.
right, especially if you're not exactly sure how certain things are chaining together.
Exactly.
And it can help you learn and understand the stack slightly better, or whatever they call the stack in this game. All right, and our last snack of the day is about how allegiance. You would think with allegiance that you would want to run a monocolored deck since it checks the top card, and you want to get the trigger Because most Allegiance cards probably are not good if you don't get the text from the Allegiance trigger.
Yeah, that is very true. On average, the Allegiance cards are mediocre at best when their Allegiance doesn't pop off, but that does not excuse running a mono deck. I would say 99.9% of the time, if you're running a mono deck, you're running it. You're running a inferior version of the deck that it could be. For
And give me an example of why you would want to include cards from another faction.
so separating like if you're playing only mono, you only have one faction of cards that you could choose from. That is just it. You have
Mhm.
the I forgot how many cards are in each faction. We'll just say 60. 60 cards from each faction. You are locked into those 60 cards because you really want to hit that allegiance. For example, a Demacian elite deck is usually very heavy Demacian focused or mono in some cases. Um, but you never want to run the mono version. You can splash in, which is adding just a few cards from a different other region, because even if my Demacian mono deck is now a Demacian Ionian deck, I now have the option to add from another 60 different cards, uh, giving me a total of 120 cards to pick from other than 60.
And not
So,
only that, there's obviously a strata of how good cards are, like a hierarchy within each faction.
yeah.
So
And so
once you build
you
a
can just
40 card
pick
deck,
deny.
yeah, exactly. And of course, there's not much of a punish other than this specific like allegiance effect
Oh,
because it just depends on what
oh,
faction it is.
I had a little audio issue there.
Oh,
Yeah, that was weird. But
well, hopefully, I'll just reiterate just in case. So there is no color of mana. So if you play a red black deck, you don't have to worry about having red and black mana like in Magic. Um, you have access to all the cards in the game when you're deck building, unlike in Hearthstone where you're struck to a specific class. So it's really nice, and I think you should take advantage of the fact that you can play two colors together and never worry about getting mana screwed.
that is 100% true. And I think just the option, like, yeah, your allegiance won't be a 100% chance, but the value you get from having cards from another region for having your allegiance at a 90% chance is just too valuable.
So if you're running an Allegiance deck, like something like specifically the Elite deck, how many cards do you think is roughly what you're looking for to add from another faction?
I would add from 6 to 10.
All
You can
right.
go lower. You can go 3 or 2 or 1, but at that
Right.
point, you might not even have those cards, other than maybe deny. I think lowest of 3 up to 10, and I think you'll
Right.
still be hitting that allegiance the vast majority of the time.
Yeah. I mean, 75% when you have 10 cards, right? And then,
Yeah,
of course, if some of those 10 cards are cards that you would always keep in a mulligan because they're a one drop or they're, a really good curve card on three, then that even less increases the odds of you getting your allegiance off per game. So
yeah.
that's pretty cool. So let's see. After Poro Snacks, we have the Q&A. Or no, we have first we have weekly cards. So today we're doing for episode 1, we're doing our favorite one mana cards.
Exactly. So
You go first.
we're not doing our favorites. We're doing our hey, look at this card. We think is pretty good.
Our favorite sleeper.
Yeah, our favorite sleeper card, and I am going to pick the card Jury Rig. I think this card is underused. I think it has a lot of value just from being a spell and it's a burst. So, for example, I'll give you some cases in which you'd use this. Uh, Turn one, enemy has attack token. They play a one mana, 2/1. We'll say Fleet Fetter Tracker. I think the card's name is the or Silverwing Scout or whatever it is. The 2/1 Challenger, and they say, "Hey, I get a free attack. You didn't play anything." Um, and they go to attack. You can burst out a 1/1 with Jury Rig to kill or chump block whenever you want. So as long as something has 1 health and they think they can attack for free, it is a hey, here's a 1/1 blocker that you can't stop. So I think it's very good, and it's also a spell. So cards that synergize with hey, play this many spells, or every time you cast a spell, this will cast along with giving you a 1/1. So 1-mana 1/1 is just not great, but it's never bad. Also, will not get obliterated from She Who Wanders. So I think that's
Yeah.
just invaluable in itself. Uh, all around, just super good. Very good with Rummage. If you use the card Rummage to discard 2, draw 2, you get 2 1/1s and draw 2 for, one card. But pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the things that we didn't bring up but we should right now is just the fact that no cards have summoning sickness in this game, so you can attack immediately when you play them, and of course that increases the value of that card as well.
Yes.
So if you could pull up, my pick is Lonely Poro.
No, I hate you.
I've got a really good reason. Don't worry. All right. So Lonely Poro. All right. The reason he is super underrated is because he's alone in the desolate wilderness of a snowy mountain. All right. And just look at his face and how sad he is. And as soon as you play another Poro, he transforms in this happy, tongue out, gonna eat a butterfly, jubilant Poro. All right. And you underrate how impactful emotionally that transition between lonely and jubilant is
See, wouldn't
as a
wouldn't playing
reward
this
for the
card
player.
psychologically buff the enemy though?
It psychologically buffs you. You feel so empowered when you play him, and you play this in your Braum deck because you want to play another amazing
You're
card.
stretching. You're stretching real hard.
Sometimes you got to stretch. All right, you always stretch before you lift. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's my.
Yeah. I don't
I
think
can't
I,
wait
I actually
until
don't think Lonely Poro is a bad card. All in all.
I want when a top level like deck comes out, like somebody's gonna make Challenger and they're gonna have Lonely Poro in their deck, and I'm going to let everyone know that I told them. Okay,
Before the
just remember
game was even in open beta,
before it was even
I've
before it was
called it.
out. Lonely Poro.
Yeah.
All right,
So those
I
are
love
the
all the Poros. All
those are the
right,
two cards that we recommend you look out for. I really think Jury Rig is super good. Like just completely slept on. So yeah,
I
and
agree.
Lonely
It's a
Poro,
slept on card.
it's all right.
All right, someone has to bring the memes with them to this party. All right, and I've got
It's
them.
it's a must take in the Poro deck. I will give you that.
Yes, that's what I'm going for. And Poros are a must play. This podcast, if I owned more than 50% of the rights to it, would be called Poro something, like Poro Porridge or something.
You
I'm
got
I'm
Poro
down.
snacks. You can live with that.
Oh man, I guess. Okay,
I
we'll
gave
move
I gave you
into
something, and then you have to hit me with this surprise Lonely Poro pick.
this was we originally got over a different, but I had to hit him with it. All right, Q&A. Do if we have any Q&As, we'll go over it and
Does
then
anyone,
we'll wrap
yeah,
things up.
chat? Do you have any questions at all that you want to ask?
Or is there any topic you want to talk about?
Yeah,
Something where you're like, this is something I would like to talk about, and it's like, talk.
we are here for you.
Because we didn't come with questions for each other, even though
Yeah,
we probably should have.
I started playing day one of the first preview patch, so I was extremely lucky to get in. Played a lot of hours, so if you have any minute questions that I might know, I'll be, happy to ask. Or if you're confused about a certain topic of the game or how something might play out, go ahead and ask. Uh, you know, we're here.
All right. I suppose I should ask some questions. So, what was the most commonly played deck during each, like, go through the preview patches and then, like, how it evolved?
Okay, beginning of the preview patch, it was Fiora, Shen. That was the main deck everyone was playing. The very first preview patch, it was
Can you
Fiora
just
Shen.
explain how that deck kind of works and what factions?
Yeah, so Fiora Shen is Ionian Demacia. Uh, and the win condition is Fiora killing 4 units. But paired with Shen, because Shen's support ability is my ally on my right gains barrier, and so you
Hmm.
give Fiora barrier every time as she challenges out something to kill, and once you kill 4 things with Fiora, you win the game. So, and there's also a lot of other synergistic barrier cards like Prismatic Barrier and what's that card called? Let me look it up. The 9-mana Demacian card. Bright Steel Formation, I think is what it's called.
Probably.
Bright Steel Formation. This card was just the game closer. in all the Fiora decks early in the game. And so that deck was very strong, and then people found out how to play against it. I don't even remember how the people played against it, to be honest.
I don't know how they stopped it, but they
Yeah, I
stopped it.
think everyone just ran spam poke like Mystic Shots and all that stuff to get rid of the barrier so Fiora killed herself during her attack. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And so
That's a
everyone
smart thing to do.
so everyone started playing Heimerdinger decks towards the end because everyone got all their cards unlocked, and everyone was like, "Hey, I want to play Heimerdinger." So
Also, Heimerdinger is just a really fun word to say. So
yeah,
I mean, of course you want to play that
Heimerdinger deck is good. Like, do not sleep on the Dong. He's super good.
deck.
All
All
the
right,
spells
so
are so overcosted in this game. The design space will be super limited for spells that cost 3 or more. I do think the majority of spells that people pick do cost 3. So creating a good mana curve like for your deck is a little hard for a lot of decks because a lot of your cards will be 3 cost cards, which I think is a might be end up being a problem. But
I don't really think that spells are overcosted in this game.
yeah, I
I
don't
think
think they're
that
overcosted. I just think there's too many 3 cost spells, in my opinion.
well, yeah, three cast spells are going to be insane just because of the fact that you get three spell mana, right?
Yeah, I think that's
But
the
I
reason
think
why
they're
there's a lot of
trying
3 cost spells too.
they're trying initially to balance around the idea that you have 13 mana, right? So everybody thinks of games, especially like Hearthstone, as a 10 mana game, although you can have more, right? But so if you're thinking about 6 cost spell in that game and comparing it to a 6 cost spell in this game, you're going to get less of an effect off of a 6 spell in this game because you have access to more mana, and it has to be like a percentage access of what you have in your pool. So
Yeah,
I do think it's going to water down stuff at the beginning because they want to play it safe. But I do think, in general, they're going to have to make their more expensive spells do more, so people have a reason to play them because you do have to actually take a lot of negative effects. Like you almost lose a turn if you play an 8 cost spell.
yeah. Especially like cards with like Judgment, where you pretty much have to attack first if you're trying to use it offensively because you can't spend too much mana unless, or you're just not gonna have enough mana to cast Judgment. So
Right, and it's really hard to say, all right, I'm going to play a card, and it's going to cost a ton of mana, and it only works when I already have board presence. Like I need some kind of board presence, and then I need to go into attack formation. Then I can play my judgment, right?
yeah. Oh, and
So
someone brought up the spell that costs 3 with Heimerdinger. Yeah, you get a 3/1 elusive every time you cost a 3 mana spell with Heimerdinger, and that gets really annoying really quick. Um, so yeah, you've definitely played. I can tell you that. And then Silas says, would it be good idea to raise the health points up to 25 or even 30? What do you think?
yeah, I'm curious what you think, and then I'll go.
I think 20 is fine. I would not be opposed to raising it. If I were to raise it, it would probably just be straight to 30 because I don't like odd numbers.
I cannot believe that you are pro 20. I'm really happy
Yeah,
you are. But,
yeah. I
what's
mean,
your reasoning?
if they came out today and said, "Hey, we're raising it to 30," I wouldn't be mad. But I don't think 20 is that big of a deal. I
I
heard a
would be
lot.
furious if they raised it to 30.
I wouldn't be furious. I would just be like, okay, the games are gonna last a little longer, right?
I mean, 150% is
Well,
a big
okay.
change. Like,
Let's just preface this. He's a dirty aggro player, so
listen, dirty.
raising the health is nerfing him.
Where's my smart boys? You know, guys, come out in the chat, support me. All right. No, like I want to play a game that takes like 5 or 6 minutes. I don't want to play
Yeah, I would say
controller.
the average game time is like between 7 and 12 minutes. That is like the average game. And so if they raised
Yeah,
it, I think the games would just be very like long, like or not very long. Like usually in this game, if you're winning, you are winning, right? If you have that big swing turn, you are in a great, really great spot. It's hard to lose. It's possible, but it's hard. And so I think the fact that you have 20 life up until the point where there's a big swing, it's pretty even in most cases, unless you're just in a really bad matchup and like drew poorly or something like that. So
Sammy's on the right page here. Like one drops become unplayable because like even if you play the 5 damage one drop, you just get to move your opponent to 25, right? And then they can play their 2 drop that can effectively deal with that. Like you just don't
Yeah.
play one
I
drop
think
into
I
that.
think most one drops in the game aren't used like super aggressively for like aggro decks. There's a few, um, but I think most of
Five
them are
one.
used for effects like 99% of the time, like Omen
What
Hawk,
about the
Made
what
Seeker
about the 5/4
Conservator.
ephemeral? Flex on
This
them.
the 4/3, the
Or
4/3
4/3.
ephemeral.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, you got me on
I
that one.
buffed him.
Yeah, you
But yeah,
buffed him. He needs to be stronger.
I thought he wasn't good enough. He needs to be a 5/4 for one with ephemeral.
Yeah, we'll pass on that one right there.
But I think 25, I could still play the game. 30, I don't know if I want to play that game. Um,
Yeah, it
I don't
might
want
it
them to
might
go
just
above
because
22.
I've played Hearthstone for so long that 30's the standard. But I think 20 is fine. I would never, petition to change it because I think it's perfectly balanced the way it is. And I'm not even an aggro player, so when I get aggroed
Right.
down, I just accept it. You know, it's just what happened that game.
This is how I look at it. All right. So when you're a gaming company and you want to get players to come in, you want them to be able to play something simple, right? Like an aggro deck, and you want them to be able to actually feel like they almost won every single game. Even a bad player can play an aggro deck against almost anyone, lower on ladder, and you'll be able to just pound their face the first 4 turns before they play stuff that stops you from doing that. And then you get to lose, and your opponent has 5 health when you lose on like turn 10, and you're like, oh, I almost won. It feels good.
Should have played better.
Right. But like I just think that's really good for new players though, right? Like
Yeah,
even if they're playing bad, they can feel like they were in the game because of the fact that if you're playing against a mid range or control deck, you're going to be able to get a lot of damage in before they really
yeah.
start to manipulate
And
you.
as I'm gonna give a tip to everyone watching right now, literally as soon as open beta begins, the ladder is going to be swarmed with aggro players because the starting decks that are given has Zed in it, and what else does it have in it? Zed and Elise, I think. You get Elise in one of them, and those two just together in an aggro deck is disgusting. And every single person is going to have it. So I think those are going to be the building blocks of uh, of the beginning of the game. So yeah, be
And
prepared.
actually, because the game's going to come out in 6 days, right? I think you should go ahead. I know you were saving this for next week, but do you want to say it now, or do you want to save it for next week?
What are we talking about?
What card do you think is really good at
Oh,
stopping aggro decks?
okay. I'll let everyone in that tuned in for the first episode.
All right. Well, first I need to name this special segment. It's this is you know Runeterra, right? Because of the Legends character Yu.
You mean
Or
Yumi
Nunu.
or
Sorry, I'm
Nunu?
stupid. Nunu. This is Nunu Runeterra.
Okay, so Scaled Snapper is going to be super good to play
Uh,
in the first week of open beta because
you got him pulled
as
up.
yeah, I got him pulled up. So as soon as you can play a Scale Snapper on turn 3 versus a lot of the aggro decks that have quick attack, like Zed has quick attack, Jinx has quick attack, Yasuo, Katarina, any of those things. Well, Katarina is a little weird because she goes back anyway, so she won't die. But a 2/5 on turn 3 just shuts them down. A Zed will never want to attack when you have a 2/5 scaled snapper on the field because he will literally just kill his Zed. Unless he has some other way, and I can tell you right now that I've played that exact same position, and then the Zed goes up to attack, and I know 100% that he has some kind of combat trick that's going to let him survive, because there's a 0% chance he would make the play otherwise. So,
Right. So you just let him go through, right?
yeah, you just let him go through. You're like, I'm not
Yeah.
falling for that. So, uh, or you just block his
So that
Shadow
what that
Shoulder,
really
but
means is big brain boys attack your Zed into specifically less gently. All right, when you play against
yeah,
him, because
be like,
he's gonna
yeah, that.
master that.
Either this
Uh,
guy's big brain or he's stupid, and I'm gonna go
oh,
with the
dude,
safe
yeah.
big brain. So
Because I'm telling you, I'm gonna try that against somebody, and they're just gonna freaking call me out. They're just gonna make the block. I'm gonna be furious. I'm like, you have no brain. You shouldn't have made the block.
yeah, it's very good. Scaled snapper can either be a 5/2 if you're aggressive, or a 2/5, and a 2/5 I think is a lot better. And there's also the Golden Crush bot from Piltover and Zon, but you don't get to choose. It's just a base 2/5 for 3 mana.
Right.
But
And I actually prefer him because I like robots. even though he's an inferior card because you don't get the options
Yeah.
against other matchups to play the
But
5/2.
Scaled Snapper is going to be a sleeper OP the first week. I'm going to let you all know right now.
All right, you guys got it here. So
The anti-aggro king.
I'm gonna find a way to beat Scaled Snapper with aggro. So look forward to that.
Shark Chariot Tanker.
That's right. Just all the Shark Chariots.
I hate that card.
Only big brain boys can play Shark Chariot.
Yeah.
It takes intricacies. You have to be
Big
able to find a
big
card that's
brain
ephemeral,
degenerates.
and then you have to click the attack button. Like there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you have to be big brain to know that you're bored. Oh, I have too many minions on my board. I won't get my Shark Chariots for free.
That's right. So you need to make sure you're constantly trading.
Yeah, I play my 3 Shark Chariots. I play Hecarim attack. I have a full board.
Yeah. That's when you know you're good. When you hit
Yeah,
Hecarim on curve.
100%. Yeah, on
Yes.
turn 6.
All right. Did you go over the second preview patch? What decks were being played?
Oh, I didn't. So at the end of the first preview patch, there was lots of spell Heimerdinger decks because everyone got all their cards unlocked. You had every card because they just gave it to you for the last day. So that's what a lot of people were playing. At the beginning of the second preview patch, it was kind of all over the place. Like people didn't really know what they were playing for the most part. And then about halfway through, someone discovered the Anivia Ephemeral deck, and that just overwhelmingly was played. It was like 50% of my games were against the Ephemeral Anivia, actual just unfair. Like that deck was literally just unfair. If you can deal with 4 Niveas and then kill all 4 Nivea eggs on turn 7, you were dead. Like and that is an extremely hard task to accomplish.
It's all right. They nerfed it. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's why they had they like reworked slash nerfed Anivia because of specifically that deck. And so, if you're ever wondering why Anivia got changed, it is 100% no doubt in my mind because of that deck. And to stop that deck was to kill the person playing the Anivia deck before turn 5. So,
So new Shark Chariot.
and so everyone was playing, Shark Chariot, Hecarim Z decks, just complete aggro, no defense whatsoever. And so those were the 2 decks that were mainly played while I'm sitting over here with my OTK combo Karma Deathmate that needs to be turn 10. So I was not having a great time.
No, you had a rough end for your second preview patch.
Yeah, rough end. Still a pretty good win rate, but, could have been a way better.
You could have joined the Shark Chariot Legion.
I could have, but I was not good enough with the foresight to craft Shark Chariot.
Oh man. All right. Well, I guess that's all we have for today. Unless you guys have any Q&A questions.
Yeah, well, I think we'll just wait 30 seconds to see if anyone else has a question. And if not, we're just going to go ahead and sign off here. Anytime now.
They're like,
wait.
it's not happening.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's over.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming, stopping by, having a nice little discussion. I think our future videos or podcasts will be not really beginner centric for the most part.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get a little more events. We want something a little low hanging fruit because the other podcasts that I've seen are like really high. They're like people trying to talk on like more of like a pro level or people getting into esports. And I was like, man, like what about us people who just want to barely make challenger?
Yeah, for real. Or people who have never played card games before, because I can almost guarantee a lot of people from League of Legends are going to come over and start playing this card game. And so if this
And
is
what
their
about
first,
those of us who don't know the lore and think that Poros are the most important character in the game?
yeah, when they're only on Summoner's Rift, or not even on Summoner's Rift. That's what I meant. So,
Yeah.
enjoyed the show. Have a good one. Thank you, my guy.
Yeah, don't forget this will be going up on Less Gently's YouTube channel. He also
Yep.
has a lot of like beginner guides and just other
I have
guides
a deck
about the
review
game.
going over every single card in the game for each region. The videos are very long because you can't go over all the cards without the video being long. I have a very brief how to make a deck video I'm going to make a new one tomorrow. Um, Today I put out just basic mechanics that we went over at the beginning of the show, and then yesterday I put out a bunch of deck archetype videos explaining what an aggro deck is, explaining what a control deck is, along those
Exactly.
lines. And
And next week we'll have a Discord up as well, so that we can chat with you guys on like a daily basis because we love talking about this game.
yep. So stop by my YouTube channel if you get the chance. If you want to learn a little bit more, I'm gonna be posting every single day. So thanks for watching. If you want the YouTube channel, it's in my bio. I'm pretty sure on Twitch. And what about you? Do you want to plug anything?
Oh yeah, I'm Lolly at the Third on Twitch. I'm also Lolly at the Third at YouTube. I post stuff not nearly as much as him. I would just follow him if I were you, and you'll catch enough of me. But thanks for watching, guys. I had a great time. Have a
Yep.
good one.
Thank you very much. See you guys.